forget the sermon title this morning. I don't do this very often, but you're not going to hear the sermon today. Maybe I'll save it there for a little later. I want to share with you today a faith journey that I've been on for several months now. And I believe it came to its culmination this week in several different ways. And I would share them with you here in a few moments, hoping that it would be an encouragement to you. And faith. Under the title for the sermon, it says that faith is a way of seeing that could look insubstantial. Faith is a way of seeing that could look insubstantial. Several months ago, this church decided that they would like to become a station church again, a standalone church. We talked to the district superintendent. The district superintendent talked to the bishop. And many of you may not be aware of this, but Bob Shabanak, who is the chair of our church council, and myself had to sign a note promising the bishop that in doing that our denominational giving would not suffer. And Bob and I did that. But then, like many of, well, maybe not many, but some of you in the congregation, each Sunday you grab the bulletin and you look at the giving for the week before and you see that it's less than what's needed to meet the budget. And that happens fairly frequently. And so I guess I began to lose faith. And I began to look at this thing that I could see right in front of my face. And I forgot the definition of faith that I learned many, many years ago. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And I began to worry and become concerned. For one thing, I didn't want to apologize to the bishop at the end of the year, okay? I don't want to have to write a note saying, Bishop, I'm sorry. And so I began to look at that, and as others do, and think, oh man, we're not going to make it. We're just not going to make it. And as I said, I actually a couple nights lost sleep over it, thinking about it. And so I was with a group of pastors of the Moundsville Ministerial Association this week doing a Bible study. And I concentrated on the faith chapter from Hebrews. Well, someone else was preaching from the Gospel of Luke this morning. And so I read that. And let me share with you. I'm going to share it all. Let me share a portion of what I read. It comes from Luke chapter 12. And I'm just going to share verses 32 through 34. And it says here, do not be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And then an email comes. This is it. A monthly printout of the giving of this church to the annual conference. Last month, this church gave in 2 Sundays $3,307.50 to help the flood victims in southern West Virginia. How ashamed I was when I saw that. How ashamed. For the Lord says, where your treasure is, there your heart is also. Thank you for restoring my faith. Thank you for showing me what is of ultimate importance. Others. I've been doing a study, getting ready, hopefully, to teach a class this fall on Tuesday evenings, based on Philip Yancey's newest book, Vanishing Grace, Whatever Happened to the Good News. Let me share with you something that he writes in here. He says John Marks, a producer for television 60 Minutes, went on a 2-year quest to investigate evangelicals, the group he had grown up among and later rejected. And he wrote a book about his findings, Reasons to Believe, One Man's Journey Among Evangelical and the Faith He Left Behind. And he talks in there about the church's response to Hurricane Katrina, and that turned a corner for him and became a strong reason to believe. And he talks about churches, one church in Baton Rouge that fed 16,000 people every day, fed them meals. He talked about another church that served as a distribution point for 56 churches, and churches in the surrounding area sent regular teams to help rebuild homes for years after the hurricane, long after federal assistance had dried up. And he said most impressively, all these churches crossed racial lines and barriers in the Deep South. And he says, as one worker told him, we had whites, blacks, Hispanics, Vietnamese, good old Cajun, and whoever else. And so he concludes, and this is what I want you to hear. I would argue that this was a watershed moment in the history of American Christianity. Nothing spoke more eloquently to believers and to non-believers who were paying attention than the success of a population of believing volunteers measured against the massive and near total collapse of secular government efforts. The storm laid bare an unmistakable truth. More and more Christians, listen to this, more and more Christians have decided that the only way to reconquer America is through service. The faith no longer travels by word. It moves by deed. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your giving. Thank you for being the church. Thank you for remembering what's of most importance. Jesus said little about how the church should behave when they're together. Jesus said very little about what we should be doing when we gather here on Sunday mornings as a church. But he had much to say about how we can affect the world around us. Much to say about that. Thank you for affecting the world. Faith is a way of seeing that can look insubstantial. But it isn't. It isn't. Would you pray with me? Oh God, we can't see the big picture. We can't imagine the twists and turns we will encounter on our path. We may not come to the place we expect, and we may not find ourselves at the end we assume. Let us expect nothing but your presence. Help strengthen our covenant to do your will, to hear your call no matter what shape it may take, to build up in us patience, endurance, humor, and wisdom, so that we may keep our promises when challenged, ask questions when we do not understand, and work diligently even in the midst of change. We dedicate our lives today, O God, and all of our energy to building your kingdom here and now. Amen.